like you said this morning, Tony, let them out the pen and then they have to get them back in. All right, you can all sit again. There's a reason I want, just think of the exercise. There's a reason I want you to say that. How many of you actually know you're overcomers? Actually know you're overcomers. We're going to be thinking about that for a bit, but before I start, just while I remember, there is one announcement I've got to make, if I can not trip over things. So I am very privileged and honoured and blessed to be able to say the Full Gospel Churches of Australia contacted me during the week. Cheryl Bean has accepted as an ordained minister by the Full Gospel Churches of Australia. So it's official, I can't call her junior anymore. So they're just going through the paperwork. I think Ron said a few hoops to jump, but she is now a registered ordained minister. I think that's pretty cool, yeah? I think. That's the first one. The other one I got is, did anybody notice this morning, people moving around, kids running around, did anybody else notice that? Or was it just me? Be honest. Yeah. That's all right. Well, I haven't finished what I'm going to say. I was sitting at the back and I was watching people talking, because I looked at Luke and Claire. Good job this morning, Luke and Claire. You know what Luke and Claire? Get that right, I'm hoping we can lasso them into doing more live worship for us. But did you notice when they started off, people were still walking around, people were still talking? Well, that seems to have flowed right through the whole morning, hasn't it? So when I was sitting up the back, I was looking at all of us and I went, Lord, why do we get so religious? Why do we get so bound in the way we do things? And I was sitting at the back, you all know the story of the Sermon on the Mount? Everybody know that story? I reckon God just gave me that little moment to see a glimpse of that. Because they would have been walking around, they would have been talking, kids would have been crying, there would have been stuff going on everywhere, wouldn't there? And Jesus was just sharing the gospel. So to all of those people that may think that there should be order in the house, I agree with you, but not at the expense of freedom. Cool? For me, I sat back there and as a pastor, I was really proud just to see how relaxed. Because we shouldn't be, you know, yeah, it's good to have order, yeah, it's good to have things in place, but I want our children growing up knowing it's okay to be free. I don't want them growing up the way I grew up in Sunday school. Anybody else have that? And I'm not being contradictory to anything, I'm just simply saying, for me, sitting up the back, just watching everybody's tolerance, everybody just getting on with the morning, and mum and dad's over there with their kids, and Luke and Claire just singing while everybody's still talking. I think that's a healthy church. Because if you can come to church and be free to be who you are, then that's healthy, isn't it? Cool bananas? Alright, so if you got your... So give everybody a clap. Give them a clap yourself. And please don't take that disrespectfully to anywhere else. I just think, for us. Yeah, if you go to some places, they do have order and stuff like that, and that's fine, and we do too. Ish. Poor old Tony, he was ready to get started. I said, don't start yet, it was 2:05. And they get all... And Tony was off talking, so it's good just to see freedom in the place. If you got your Bibles, if you got your electronic devices, that's the one, Duncan, they're teaching me how to say it properly. Please go to 1 Samuel, chapter 17. For those that were Bible study on Wednesday night, that will sound very familiar to you. Yeah. And a plug for the newsletter up the back, Annette did a great job. She had to wait till last minute for me to hand in my message, but that's okay. She did a great job of getting the newsletter up and running. It's up the back, this month's newsletter, if you would like to have a read. There you go. So, simple question for you. You're all saying you're overcomers, yeah? Yep. You know when you say that, can you actually think of something you've overcome? Can you, like, your mind just run back a little bit and go, Everybody can do that? Yep. Do you know what that is? Anybody got an idea? So? Shh, you eat your biscuit. What it is when you look back and you remember something that you've overcome is actually your testimony. You got that? So if you take a note, write that down. When people say, I don't know what my testimony is, can I tell you that's your testimony right there? What you've overcome, what you've come through, what you've done, where God's brought you to, isn't that a testimony? I reckon it's a fair assumption, if I look around the room, every single person here has had to overcome something. Most of us have to overcome doubt in believing in Jesus before we could even come to church. Would you agree with that? Biggest obstacle of all. So you wouldn't be here if you hadn't overcome that simple point of view. So there's one testimony for all of you, isn't it? Songs we were singing this morning were pretty cool, I thought. So as an overcomer, you have a testimony of what Christ has done in you before we even start this morning. So if that's the only one you got, and I don't think so, but isn't that a powerful one? Yeah? There's a bit of power in his name, isn't there? And you get to learn that as you get a bit older in the Lord. So, we're going to go to 1 Samuel. So, 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 31, Duncan. Yeah, they ask me these things at the start and then I forget. I should take notes. Anyway, it's the story of King David. You all know that story? He's been, appointed king by the prophet while he was still looking after sheep and that. He hasn't actually assumed the throne yet, but he was handpicked by God. This anointing come upon him. You all know the story? We don't have to run through in detail. We can just sort of skip through. So to cut a long story short, he was out looking after sheep. He knew there was a big war about to take place between the Philistines and his people. He was so in love with his sheep that he actually left his sheep and left somebody care for them. That's a key point. He ran down to see what was going on in the battle, but then he left the battle to run back and check on his sheep. Then he left the sheep to check on the battle. Must have thought something pretty cool of those sheep, eh? We get to this point in time where this dude called Goliath has made himself available, made himself known. Anyway, the army's hiding behind rocks. Can I ask you something? We did this on Wednesday night. How many of us are hiding behind rocks? I'm not going to ask anybody to put your hands up. All I know is this morning, Tony and I were having a chat at the door, and we both talked about, and I loved how he talked about getting in and pressing into Jesus. That was pretty cool, welcome this morning actually. I was only sharing with him this morning about how I put my foot in my mouth during the week. Anybody else have that problem? Foot in mouth disease? Never. I wish I could say that, but I'm married, so I can't. It's always happening. So anyway, this dude's standing there and he said, David, he says, why are you all hiding? Why are you all hiding away from this man? Because they were hiding because of what they were hearing and what they were seeing. This dude called Goliath was a giant to them. Could you imagine if every one of them soldiers all jumped on Goliath at once? What do you reckon would have happened? Still staggering me to think that this one dude had bluffed the whole army. That if the whole army had just jumped on him at once, he wouldn't have survived. But he didn't bluff an army as an army, he bluffed individuals one at a time that made up an army. Does that make sense? He bluffed individuals that became the army. He made each one of them feel that they couldn't do anything about what he was doing. And that collectively. Anybody ever had that done to them before? You know when you just feel that you're the only one? Isolated? You're the only one that's facing this giant. So we're talking about giants, yeah? Anybody got that? Yeah? Well, I'm not an orphan in the room. Praise God for that. So moving forward in this story, he gets told by his brothers, shut up you little such and such. How dare you? Because they're the ones hiding. He's saying, we should be doing something about this. They get angry at him. And basically say to him, who are you? Bugger off. Cut a long story short, this report gets back to Saul, the king. The king calls for David. This is where we're going to pick up the story, okay? So that's a quick rundown for you. It's probably my version of it. It's probably not biblically accurate. But check it out anyway. It's a good story. If you have a good look at it, identify yourself in there. You'll see yourself in there, in the story, all right? So we're going to talk about giants, and the reason we're going to talk about giants is we've all got them. How many got giants happening right now? I like that. I don't know too many people that don't go from one giant to another. They seem to pop up. What are the things that they do to us when they pop up? Ostracize us, isolate us, discourage us, condemn us, insignificant, hey? Intimidate's a good word, Pete. So these are the things that happen to us when giants appear in our life. One of the things that Goliath represented in this story is he was so much bigger than the average man. So when you looked at him, he was up here. How many of us actually see our giants up here? We all do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be giants. If we didn't see the situation or the problem up here, like B, it wouldn't be a problem, would it? Because if it was down here, you'd just always step over it. So most of us have these things that are up here that are intimidating, condemning, overwhelming. Basically, making you have no hope and feeling lost. We all feel that from time to time, don't we, in different situations? Marriages, children, work, finances, yeah? Can I tell you, you're all perfectly normal people if that happens to you? Can I tell you that it's not so much about, oh my God, my faith's not strong enough. Oh Lord, you're not big enough. It's not so much about that, is it? It's about what the giant does to you. It's not about what Jesus is doing per se, it's about what the giant's doing to you. Most of us, when these giants come upon us, we succumb to them. We start to believe, don't we? So bitterness starts to rise up. That's one of the symptoms of a giant that I know of. Unforgiveness rises up. Unworthiness rises up. Insignificance rises up. But one of the really big, nasty ones that rises up in me is doubt. Anybody else got that problem? As soon as a giant pops its little head up, straight away I go, help, Lord. That's the first reaction. Instead of standing there and saying, hey, you're in trouble, giant, because I got this big dude on my team. So let's pick up the story of David. Can we put that up, please? So there's two parts I want to focus on. The first one is David's response to Saul and Saul's response to David. All right, so one's a shepherd and one's a king. Let's focus on that. When David's words were heard, they were repeated to Saul and he sent for him. Yep, kick arm feet. David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of this Philistine. Your servant will go out and fight with him. I just want to stop there for a minute. Let no man's heart fail because of this Philistine. So if you take the word Philistine, just write giant in there. Let no man's heart fail because of this giant. So male, female, yeah? Biggest issue we can't testify to is straight away what happens to us when the giant appears. Our heart fails. What's your heart? So we're not talking physically. Spiritually, what's your heart? Any ideas? Yeah, courage. Heart's your belief. The Bible says that out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. True? So if your heart fails, which is your spiritual strength, your spiritual courage, what you stand on, what you believe, if that fails, straight away, you're not going to speak like David. David stands firm and he says, let no man heart fail him. Where do you reckon that's coming from? What do you reckon he's standing on? Faith. He's standing straight away. Now remember, he's not standing in front of the giant physically. Because not every giant is a spiritual thing. How many have physical giants attacking them? Now let me show you what a physical giant looks like. Finances. Children won't talk to you. Husbands and wives are tearing each other to pieces. Your husband or your wife don't want you to go to church because they're non-believers. That's a physical. You got me? Do you know what an emotional one looks like? I'll show you. It's the one in here that says you're a dropkick, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, how can God help you? Emotional takes place in here. Do you all know where spiritual takes place? Anybody know? It's what comes out of your mouth. The Bible says you live or die by the words you speak. That's what the Bible says. Not me, I didn't write it. How you're speaking. So if you've got a broken spirit inside, you're going to be speaking what? Brokenness. I'm not good enough. I'm unworthy. I'm ugly enough. Too fat, too skinny, too black, too white, too rich, too poor, too old, too young. How's that for getting it all out at once? How many of us have succumbed to that one? The way you look. You know when you look in the mirror and you go, look at me. We were talking this morning about how certain people in here are getting really old. Don't point to me. Duncan was making that statement. I was just trying to remind Janice this morning how out there I said, aren't you lucky I'm so beautiful? She opened the door and said, where? we were having a bit of a clown around, yeah? The point I'm trying to say is how many of us find these words coming out from a broken spirit that are negative? How many of us have that happening? I think everybody would have to put their hand up at some point, to be honest, yeah? Maybe not today, but every one of us are not immune from the attacks of the devil, yeah? I like this statement, let no man's courage fail. Is that what he said? Make sure, let no man's heart fail. Man, I reckon he must have had something going on inside that allowed him to say that, yeah? He hadn't seen this dude. If you actually read the scriptures, I can't remember whether it was before this or after this, but he actually says, who is this Philistine? That's incredible. Because he's not talking about something he knows. He's going, who is this dude that mocks the armies of God? Who is he? Imagine when he rocked up and he suddenly finds, you know, I don't know, I don't reckon it affected him at all. And we'll see why. Let's keep reading. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go to fight against this Philistine. You are only an adolescent and he has been a warrior from his youth. How many of you hear that in your own heads? He heard it physically, yeah? Saul stood there and said to him, dude, you're only little, you can't fight this. How many of you have giants tell you that in your own mind? How many of these unworthiness and these bitternesses rise up inside and say, you're just a loser. You're a failure. Your parents rejected you, so there you go. See, you come from broken life. You've got a broken marriage. Have a look at you. How many of you actually hear that? This is what this little boy gets to hear. So this terminology is adolescence. The other version says youth. Some say boy. I want to show you something. He's young and he's only little. Let's just get that clear. He ain't a little fella. About Greek size. Didn't want to sit next to me, bro. You're right. So the point I want to say is here's this king. Now I want to show you something here. Here's a dude that all the pressure's on. He's the king of an army. May I ask you all a simple question? If you read it correctly, he's in his tent away from the front line. Why? The king should be over where the brawl is. He should be leading his men. Sorry, God. I think his heart's failed. I think there's a bit of fear in there. I think he's having problems. I was going to say something else, but we won't. I think he's stressing out. I think he's done where the others are all hiding behind rocks. He's got it in his tent. And the tent's away from the front line. So here's this little boy coming along that structurally, physically, probably even in speech, looks like the most useless. And here's this king. And this king's standing there going, you can't. You're just a little boy. I know when these giants come against me, one of the ones that I struggle with, so can I give you a personal struggle, yeah? I'm a pastor. I'm not looking at my wife. I'm a pastor and I get to go all over the place. I get to share a lot of things, and half the time I get to forget who I'm actually talking to. So I've been known to call people wrong names. You've all been on the end of that? Many of you have. And when I do that, because sometimes you've got so much going on, I'll start forgetting who's in what scenario, and then I'll start talking, and all of a sudden I'm talking about Tony when I'm talking to Carl. Not Tony as a person, like, you know what I mean? There's so much going on. And then I'll spend time with people for a long time, and you think, man, are they ever going to get it? That's a problem, Cheryl, isn't it? Pastor's problem. And I'll do that. So this is one of my little giants. So just giving you a heads up, all right? And I'll sit back and I'll say, Lord, is this for real? How long am I going to talk to them for? How long is it going to take before they get hold of this? And then the Lord says to me, well, let's start on you. How long are we going to go with you for? And I'm like, oh. Then I've got to go, Father, forgive me. How many of you struggle to say, forgive me, Father? And before everybody answers that, it's very easy to sit here as a group and go, yeah, until it comes time to actually do it. Because some of those things can be pretty full on, can't they? Anybody else got that problem? Don't put your hand up. The point I'm trying to say is it's one of my little things that God and I, because as a pastor I get to talk and I get frustrated, and then I get what happened at the end of this week does my head in. I happened to go visit a couple of families at the end of this week. I sat down and I watched things that absolutely stunned me. I'll show you what I mean by stunned me. I all of the talking, all of the visiting, and I'm sitting there and they're preaching to me. You ever experienced that before? For a pastor, that does your head in. So I'm sitting there rejoicing, thinking, oh man, this is pretty cool, because they're going, but Reg, you've got to get this point, you've got to get that point. And I'm going, I reckon I thought that. And when I'm sitting there, the Lord reminds me and He says to me, the fight is not yours. The fight's mine. They're my children, not yours. They're mine, not yours. I'm just sending you out to go and share the gospel with them, but they're mine, not yours.
Amen.
Anybody else got the reality of that? I hope every Christian gets this. You own nobody. Christ owns everything. The quicker we learn that, the better it is inside your own brain cells, all right? I'm talking to me, not you. So let's have a look. So he says, for a warrior from his youth. What's David? Hasn't he been a warrior already from his youth? He only little, right? I'm going to ask you something. So when this giant says to you, you can't deal with it because this giant's been brawling with you since you were little, may I ask you something? Seriously? Haven't you been brawling with him since the day you can remember anyway? Haven't you? Haven't you had to overcome many different things since your life, since you can remember? So these giants are not foreign or new to you, are they? Most of us, these giants wear the same makeup every year, year in, year out. Good call? Let's keep going, please. Let's have a look at David's response. And David said to Saul, I love this, your servant. He's not trying to take the throne away from him. He's not trying to say he's better than anybody else. He's just making a statement here. You know when people try to say to us, you're not good enough, you're too young. Let me show you something. Saul, as in Paul, not this Saul, you know the one on the road to Damascus? I think his was a 5-day turnaround. You know the first thing he did after he got set free, he started testifying and everybody was scared of him because they thought he was playing tricks. You know the giants in your life, the day Christ became your Lord and Saviour, you've got power and authority over them. You don't have to go to Bible school to learn that. Go to Bible school to learn the Word of God, don't go to the throne of power. Cool? Let's keep going. Your servant kept his father's sheep, and when there came a lion or again a bear and took a lamb out of the flock, next one please, I went out after it and smote it and delivered the lamb out of its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and smote it and killed it. What's David doing right now? What's he doing? Testifying. You know, one of the things that many of us lose sight of is when that giant arises in front of us, we start to doubt and we start to walk in fear instead of standing in front of it and testifying to it. You know what I mean by testifying to it? Christ has set me free. Listen to what David is saying to this king. You know when the lion and the bear came? How many of you have had lion and bears already? I think we've already established you all have, yeah? When they came against me, I took it and I knocked it out. May I ask you something? Have you overcome giants, lions and bears already? And I want you to put your hand up if you have. So right now, guess what you have at your disposal? What have you got? You tell me. You have a power and authority over them given to you by the death and resurrection of Christ to stand your ground. Can you see that? David stood his ground based on previous victories. How many of us, when giants appear, we base our life on previous defeats? Well, that just comes down to faith and to doubt, doesn't it? Previous defeats tend to rise up first, unless I'm an orphan again. David isn't concentrating on previous defeats. He's just sitting back saying, well, you know what, dude, I already taken out some lions and some bears. You have already took out giants in your life or you would not be sitting here. Some of you would probably be dead, and that's a fact, because of where you've come from. Others of you would be so intimidated and so lack of trust you wouldn't get out of bed. There's many in here that would not even socialise if you hadn't overcome things already. Fair call? Now I'll talk to the rest of you, that was just me. Here's the point, we get so deceived by these giants in our life that we start testifying to give them power. Because that's what we're doing. Oh, but I can't. Can I show you the difference between can and can't? It's a little t. Just think cross. Just think cross. Can or can't. Take the cross out of can't and put it to can and you will. Simple. Well, I'm going to be careful because it sounds simple, doesn't it? Man, you know the problem when you preach these things or when you teach these? Yes, and then straight away this giant comes along and says, well, we're going to find out, aren't we? I know a simple way to help you knock a giant out pretty quick. If you want to knock him out very quick, learn forgiveness and learn corrections of judgment. Two things in the Bible very quickly, and you knock giants down to size. Because that's the basis of a lot of giants' issues, yeah? Not all of them, I said a lot of them. Let's keep moving. Your servant killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. Let me show you something about defying the armies of the living God. And I spoke with God about this, and I went, okay, how do I put this in there? And I'm going to remind you back what I said earlier. Do you remember I said to you, he defied and put fear in a whole army, one soldier at a time. Let me show you who the armies of the living God are. Who do you think it is? You are the army of the living God. Do you actually believe that? Do you actually believe that you are the ones given all the weaponry? Do you know what the weaponry is, right? Pastor Cheryl testified this morning to Rick, so I hope Rick doesn't mind me sharing this, is that okay? Pastor Cheryl come outside and she said, you know, Rick was praying and I got healed of a pain in my stomach while Rick was praying. Now Cheryl, in Cheryl's natural vocabulary, she goes, okay. I said to Cheryl, you better go tell Rick and tell him the testimony to encourage him so that he can grow in faith to keep praying. Now I'm disappointed, that should have been me, shouldn't it? I am the pastor of the church. Should be all me, shouldn't it? And I tell you, set them up there. Can I tell you how wrong that mentality is? I don't care if you've been in the church 50 years or 5 minutes. If you think you're any more loved or any more favoured by God, you're being deceived by some giant. Let me show you why. Every one of you, just look around for a minute. Just have a quick sneak peek. Just have a look. Just look around. Every one of you was saved by one person and one person only. Who was that?
Jesus.
And what did he do for you?
He died.
While you were yet still a sinner. Can I tell you, whether you've known him for 50 hours, 50 years or 50 seconds, makes no difference to what he's given you when you receive him. One of the saddest things I see is I'm not qualified. I'm not experienced. How do you think you get qualified and how do you think you get experienced if you don't actually go out and do it? Cool? You know, Cheryl's been in training. This is all my head, and I just do a private one for you. Cheryl's been in training since September. You all got that? You know, when she was inaugurated. Man, you know how long it took me to get my qualification? She gets a given tour in a matter of months. Do you think I'm rejoicing or do you think I'm sad? He's sad and rejoicing. Do you know why I'm rejoicing? I praise God because it took me all the time it took me to go through to have to get rid of some religious thoughts, had to break a few Pharisees in my own head, had to break a few rules even. Now we got Cheryl who's getting to get raised up in all of that rapidly. I sat back and I was thinking about Duncan. I actually think I said this to Kyle. You know, when I was seeing you during the week, I'm spinning out of Kyle and Duncan. I'm just naming them, not everybody's spinning me out. Yeah, look where that come from. I can't say exactly what Kyle thought the first time I invited him to church because that will get me in trouble. Okay? No. But I'll give you the point. It was basically like never, with a lot of explanatories on the end of it. Can I tell you how cool God is? In not that long of a time, now we got them sitting here. Lovely wife Felicia, now Brianna's here, and we've got you and Fitz. And I'm sitting there going, really, God? And he's going, yeah, remember what I told you? I want to show you something. If you're willing to get out of God's way in your own life, He is able to do more than you could ever imagine humanly possible. Change you from the inside out, get you to work, change other people's lives if you're just willing.
Amen.
In here.
Amen.
To say, Lord, here, I think we sang a song, Luke. I think the lyrics were on the lines of,